In 40 of the 50 states, the highest paid state employee is either a football coach or a basketball coach at a university or college.
Welcome to 1850 Main Street. Come on in and pull up a chair. Today, Rob Walgate from the American Policy Roundtable and Alan C. Duncan, executive producer of the Public Square Media Network, are at the table by the fireplace.
Well, Dave couldn't be with us today. He's on assignment elsewhere. And so
it's up to us to keep the train on the tracks.
Well, I feel like we're already derailing. So I don't know what you're getting me into. So, you brought the topic to the table. So if I'm not an expert,
because we were having discussions, then I get a call from my pastors. We're going and I tease him what we're going to be talking about. And he's like, really? And like some of the stats that we threw out there came as a bit of a surprise.
He did sound interested. Yes.
As they did to you and I now. And that would be three guys, counting my pastor that called. He played college baseball.
Okay. Yeah.
You played college football. Mm-hmm. I really like sports.
You played college basketball
for like a cup of coffee before they decided to throw me out, but that's okay.
Well, you didn't get thrown out for athletic reasons. You got thrown out for academic reasons.
No, they weren't athletic reasons. I was wagering on athletics that I shouldn't have been.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's another show, another topic, another show.
That's another show.
Yeah. But so it's
still that's your sports expertise.
That's my sports expertise. I'm a varsity basketball coach now, whether I wanted to be or not.
Yeah. Longtime referee, official.
College and high school basketball official. So.
And you're a father of a professional athlete. You are.
Father of a professional wiffle ball player. That I am. Mm-hmm. That I am. But we enjoy sports. And this isn't meant to come across as a negative about sports, but it's meant to be something fact-based when it comes to sports in the discussion. Because when sports are involved, there's a lot of times that public money, taxpayer dollars, is used in the realm of sports. You have where stadiums are subsidized in the professional arena by taxpayers to create economic development. We hear it talked about all the time. There are constantly fights that take place when it comes to building arenas. Where will the money come from? Will the billionaire owners, how much will they be putting up? How much will they not be putting up? You see it everywhere, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is especially big topic in Cleveland right now. We're recording this, not far from the Cleveland city limits. So it's the Browns may be moving to Brook Park, possibly. So it's on our minds right now.
For those listening, that would mean a move roughly from downtown Cleveland, probably 7 miles, 8 miles.
Yeah, not far.
I mean,
not far.
6 miles to the south to a lot next to the airport.
Yes.
And the reason for that is
about 5 minutes walk from my house. So I'm intrigued by that. We'll see what that does to home value.
There is a law, and where does this tie to taxpayer and law? There's a law that would go into place. Well, there's a law that was passed years ago when Art Modell moved the Cleveland Browns from the city of Cleveland to Baltimore. That still stings for a lot of...
I'm editing my thoughts right now.
Yeah. So the state legislature in Ohio passed a law, I think it was in section 967, that says basically an entity can't remove a professional sports team from the city where they're participating in a stadium that is subsidized by the taxpayers. That's basically what the law says. And the law goes on to say, if they do that, you have to give someone inside the city the opportunity to purchase the team. Now, it doesn't say you have to sell the team. It says you have to give them the opportunity to purchase the team.
Yeah. Here, I've actually got it pulled up right here. It says, this is partially, it says, gives the political subdivision or any individual or group of individuals who reside in the area the opportunity to purchase the team. So, and I think that's, so the Browns have now brought opportunity
to purchase the team.
And it says area. Doesn't even say city.
So it doesn't say city.
There's a lot of things like that in this language.
There are. And there are laws like this across the country when it comes to trying to keep teams in certain places for certain reasons, for economic development, for the amount of money that's been invested by the community. You are seeing that take place in baseball with Oakland, with their move to Las Vegas. You're seeing that take place In other places, San Fran years ago moved from San Francisco and Candlestick Park out to, I think they're in Santa Clara now. So sports, taxpayers, and government subsidies have been at odds with each other for years and years.
Yeah. And so you brought some statistics to the table that are surprising to a lot of people.
Well, I brought the statistics I brought to the table deal in the realm of more so college athletics, because college athletics, for the most part, are tied to state universities, state institutions that are publicly subsidized. So what I brought to the table was the salaries. And again, I'm going to make arguments on both sides here. I think this is more factual and look to be fact-based and hear some responses and see some, because in full disclosure, some of the people that we may be talking about in a roundabout way, I know are friends of mine. When you say that in 40 of the 50 states across the country, the highest paid state employee is either a head football coach or a head basketball coach.
Wow.
Hear me again.
Yeah. Let that sink in.
The highest paid state employee in 40 of the 50 states across the country is either a basketball coach or a football coach at one of the state's institutions.
That's wild. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense.
Does it make sense? I mean, does it make sense?
I'm not saying it should be that way, but it makes sense just in terms of the sheer money that college football generates or college basketball.
The sheer money that it generates and the cult-like status. Again, from a sports fan, but it is a cult-like status we have with our allegiance to our sports team affiliations, whether that's professional or whether that's college. I think the difference becomes in the professional ranks, the taxpayers aren't subsidizing the salary of those coaches. And then many times the coaches at the college level are making more money than those at the professional level. Now, I can hear people screaming at their computer or phone or radio right now saying, but look at all the money those folks bring in. Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I'm going to ask you, is that college coach bringing in more money or more publicity than a governor? And I'm not saying governors should be paid $10, $12, $13 million, but more than that governor who's probably making a few $100,000 a year, that he's bringing in economic development across the entire state.
Well, and I think that's where you'd have to think about who would you want to make more. Let's go through a couple of names before. You emailed over to me this USA Today piece that was just updated this month. So this is pretty fresh statistics. Kirby Smart of Georgia makes over $13 million a year. Dabo Swinney of Clemson, over $11 million. You know, let's go down the list.
You got to go a while until you get to a private institution.
Yeah.
You notice that? You got to go a while. And now again, in fairness, there aren't a ton of private schools that compete at the highest level in sports across the country. Now, is the reason for that because they can't be subsidized by the taxpayers the way that the public schools can? These are questions that we need to look at.
Well, I guess that's my question. How much of these salaries, like Kirby Smart's $13 million, how much of that comes from taxpayers?
Well, the whole school is the question becomes, is the school's paying that salary, right? So you look at his pay and then you look at his maximum bonus, but also in some of that pay will be, he does a radio show or he does a television show. Most of these coaches have shows and outside deals that help supplement that. Now, some people would say, well, he would get that money anyway, so that's just playing a shell game with the money that the institution gets to save. And again, I'm not going after Kirby Smart because he makes a lot of money. I mean, he's brought a lot of money into the state of Georgia, and he's done a lot of great things. Now, again, I know there's people that are yelling about some of the off the field stuff that has happened. But again, I've said this to my friends that are in the coaching world. Their salaries and their jobs are predicated upon the decisions of 18 to 23-year-old young men. Yeah. And Kyle DeBoer, it's 17 to 23-year-old young men because his best receiver's still 17 years old at the University of Alabama, I believe.
Yeah, well, great player. But I think that's why there's only a few guys that can do this at that highest level. That's why these big name coaches are in such high demand. Not everybody can take 18-year-old kids and field a national champion. And I know there's money involved, especially with the NIL now. And I know the schools have a pedigree. So some of it's the school, some of it's the money, but not everybody can come in there and be a leader of men like these top tier guys.
Right. But they're the highest paid state employee in 40 of the 50 states by a long shot. They're not even close. I mean, the university presidents aren't making close to some of these people. Gordon Gee got fired at Ohio State. When they talked about during the Tressel era, when someone asked about would Jim Tressel be removed, and that's a whole nother show, and the catastrophe that was that. And he said, I hope Coach Tressel doesn't fire me, because in many of these places, the head football coach carries most of the weight, or the head basketball coach. They have that juice.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what is really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to The Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast, or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America is really talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
But do they carry that much weight in terms of the state, in terms of state policy? Like, I would be concerned if someone wanted to be governor for the paycheck. I wouldn't want someone to run for governor because they hoped that they would make $13 million. You almost want that to be more of a service-oriented thing.
Right.
There's no term limits for football coaches. You
got to win.
You got to win. Yeah, it's strictly predicated upon performance on the field, how well they do their job. At least it should be. It
should be. And again, when you look at it, it's the state-funded institutions that are the ones at the top of the list. Now, they're the ones that win the most as well. Mm-hmm. They do. They win the most, but they're also receiving the highest paycheck. You mentioned NIL, and I think that was one of the things that helped push NIL forward. Well, number one, it was unconstitutional not to have it because you were limiting the ability for young people to capitalize on their own name, image, and likeness, which is kind of leaves you scratching your head. There's
especially when the coach is making this many millions of dollars.
Yes, if there's people making tens of millions of dollars, and the justification is, well, the athlete is going to get an education. The problem is, in many of these places, the coaches were worried about winning. I'm not saying all coaches, and not the education of these young people, and they're being put back in an environment that they came from, and in many cases, that environment is not an environment where they're able to thrive and succeed and reach their fullest potential.
Well, we also know the dangers of playing football at such a high level, more so than we used to even 10 years ago. Now we know about CTE and the concussions and the repeated subconcussive blows that take place in football. And I'm saying this is someone who played football for a decade of my life. And it's something that concerns me. And I have not yet. Caleb is angling to play flag football. And you know how I feel about flag football.
I know how you feel about flag football, but I just want to go on the record and say Caleb would be a stud at football.
That's why it hurts so bad. I think he may wear me down. I think he may play flag. But I feel like flag football is a gateway drug to real football. And that's the edited version of that analogy.
Flag football is football, though.
I love flag football. I like it. I had fun playing flag growing up. I just feel like if you play flag, you're going to want to play real. That's my fear.
He wants to play real without playing flag. So yeah.
So we'll see. But again, I say all that to say to agree with you. I think these players need to be able to capitalize. They're putting their bodies on the line. If you're playing high level college football for like an Alabama or a Clemson or a Georgia, you're getting drilled.
The folks that are playing at this level and how hard they're getting hit. I listened to a podcast last week that Scotty Scheffler was being interviewed on, and he was talking about where he's a member at a club in Dallas and where he plays a lot of golf, and he plays a lot of golf with Tony Romo. And he was talking about how Tony Romo, former quarterback of the Cowboys, who went to a small school, by the way, but former quarterback of the Cowboys. He was talking about how Romo's a very good golfer, but he's only a good enough golfer to what his body allows him to be because how old he is. He's not that old. I mean, what is he?
He's old?
What is he? Is he in his 40s still?
I would think he's
got to be in his 40s,
Yeah,
early
let's take a
50s. It all runs together. Alan's going to fact check me live.
Yeah.
But he said his body won't let him do it because of the years of pounding that he took playing the game of football. Your body, I mean, you look at NBA players that played basketball, like when you see them sitting down somewhere, if you ever see them, they're rubbing their knees. Your body takes a beating in basketball. So football, you're getting drilled as well. How old is he?
44.
44.
This has him at 44.
So he's 44 and he's
a year older than me, if that.
Peak athlete, just like you, peak athlete. And that's what Scotty was saying. He's in great shape, but his body won't let him do those things because of what you sacrifice and what you put on the line.
When I used to work for the Cleveland Browns, one time I was leaving the stadium. I was walking behind Dan Marino, and he was walking. I was surprised he could stand up, how gingerly he was walking. It just looked like his knees were shot. And I just felt bad for him. Like my heart went out to him. But that's just to your point, to the sheer pounding that these guys, I feel like he always had knee braces on, even when he was playing.
Yeah.
You can imagine a football card of Dan Marino. He's probably got a knee brace on. But yeah, it looked like his knees were turning in. I just felt bad.
So the question becomes, should athletics be subsidized at the university level? Because at many of these programs, football loses money. Now at the big programs, football funds everything else.
Do you think you need to create a tiered system then?
Well, I think that's what they're going to with the divisions that they're doing. And you look at the conference now. I mean, and this is the other thing where we're going to crisscross policy in sports. UCLA has, as part of their educational program or one of their departments, has something to do with global warming, with climate change and this concern. UCLA's football team this year is going to fly tens of thousands of miles because I believe they played in Hawaii. Someone's going to fact check that. I believe they went to Hawaii, but they also now play in the Big Ten, even though they're on the West Coast. So they're playing teams out east. I mean, because the almighty dollar has moved amateur athletics, intercollegiate athletics in that direction. So that's why it's happening that way, because of the money. So I think you're going to see a system that you've seen the SEC grown. The SEC now includes teams that aren't in the SEC, meaning the Southeast. They are in the SEC. They're just not in the Southeast.
The region.
Yeah, they're in that area. But what you're seeing is it's subsidizing, and we're talking about football, but there's other college sports that are going to lose a ton of money when you look at the travel and all that taxpayers are subsidizing for those kids to travel the country, be a part of it. That's where I think in the all perfect world, it's going to go to a system where maybe football and basketball are in those large conferences and the other sports play in their regions of the country the way it was originally set up. You won't have teams in the ACC that are on the West Coast.
Right.
ACC stands for Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah, but see, and then you can kind of talk yourselves into why you would subsidize athletics in the school if you want people and students to come to that region, because you are somebody who is on the board of a private Christian school, and I know we've talked about, we need athletics. You need the athletic program to attract students, and you want the athletic program to be able to compete at a high level. So
you do, but taxpayers don't subsidize our athletic program, and the coaches there don't make millions of dollars. I can promise you that.
No, I'm just saying the only reason I bring this up is the importance of having a high quality athletic program to attract students.
Well, I was with someone not long ago that's a supporter. It's a graduate of Notre Dame. Their children went to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a private institution, but he talked about how many kids per class they have there and how when the football team wins, applications go much higher. People want to go there and they see it on TV. It's the reason teams in the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, that are made up of schools in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, New York, Michigan, those schools play football games on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights in the coming weeks. Why do they do that? They call it MACtion. Why? So they can get eyes on their institution. They're going to be on ESPN. They're going to be seen across the country because people want to watch football.
Yeah.
Now, those athletes at MAC schools. The students help subsidize that with an athletic fee and other things. But those are Division I athletes that are amazing at what they do, but they are state institutions.
This makes me think, you mentioned for a lot of schools, a lot of smaller schools, football loses money. This is why I went to a small private Christian school for college, and I played football for them. They no longer have a football program. That hurts me to say. Makes you feel old too. Not a ton of things make me feel super old, but that actually made me feel old. I was like, I played for a team that just no longer exists. But it was just something that wasn't viable for them any longer.
And some people may be saying, well, what if it's not the football coach, who is the highest paid? If it's not the basketball coach, let's look at a couple of these. You have a few states where college presidents are the highest paid state employee. Med school dean at a couple states, med school department chair, med school chancellor, med school plastic surgeon. So it sounds like people that are in that realm of med school, but those, again, they're still making, when you compare them to what the coaches are making at some of these places, they're not making close to what the coaches make.
Could you imagine for some of these schools, like maybe a Georgia, a Clemson, an Alabama, an OSU, could you imagine with the nil money that the quarterback of the team eventually becomes the highest paid state employee?
Well, he wouldn't be a state employee because he would be getting nil money from private sources. Those are private funds and entities in many cases. So he's not going to get that from the school unless we move to full pay to play, which is what some are talking about. Now, and some people say, wait a minute. At some of these schools, they're paid this salary, but there's also boosters that are writing checks that say, all right, if Alan Duncan's going to be the football coach, I'm willing to give another $5 million. So the boosters are padding to the university so they have the ability to do that. They're also saying, wait a minute, Alan Duncan's the coach. Look how many butts are in the seats on Saturday afternoons. We got 100,000 people here. So if we're making all that revenue, someone should get it. The argument then becomes, well, at some of these places, Mom, I love you more than anything, but my mom could be the coach at some of these teams and they still would probably win. You know what I mean? It's about recruiting. It's about getting talent. I understand all that. I understand the sports landscape. I'm just saying, when we're always asking for taxpayer dollars to subsidize things, how does athletics play into that? And we haven't even gotten into, or didn't get into, the fact of when you look at professional athletes, how they choose where to go. It used to be about the highest contract, and it still is to a point. And again, professional athletes, theirs aren't subsidized by the city. The stadiums they play in may be, but athletes make decisions on where they want to go as professionals when their contract is up, possibly based upon the state income tax in each state or locale. If you go to Tennessee,
you wouldn't.
Yeah, what you want to go? I mean, look, there's people that don't want to play for the Toronto Raptors north of the border in the NBA.
Yeah,
in Canada because of the tax rate. There's people who don't want to play in California that say, I want to go to Texas.
Yeah.
Florida. I want to go to Tennessee. I want to go to Florida. I want to go somewhere where there's zero or very low income tax, and to maximize. They're willing to go for less because of that. So the taxpayers play a role in all this. Again, I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid that way or they should be paid that way. I'm saying we probably need to take a closer look at it when we dive into what we spend money on. We do. Well, and I think to kind of bring this to a close, I'm looking at some other public sector jobs, and I'm looking at which ones you think would you like to make more money if you could wave a magic wand and have them make more money. I'm looking at firefighters. Yeah, that would be one I'd say we could probably pay those guys some more, or ladies some more. The police officers, in some of these communities and cities that they
for
work.
More training too.
Yeah,
all of the above.
How about the people that fight and defend our freedom all across the world? Yeah, there's plenty of things you can look at and do. And nurses, there's some nurses, and this is not to disparage these college football coaches. Please hear me out on that, because many of them, they don't care if we are disparaging them. But they give these football and basketball, they give back to their communities. They're generous folks. This is just talking about taxpayer dollars. Where does it go? And sometimes we're willing to turn a blind eye to it because we really like yelling at the TV on Saturday afternoons.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.